Hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar. So we'll just get started in another couple of minutes, just waiting for a few more folks to join. All right, we can get it started. A warm welcome to everyone who's joined us today evening. Thank you for joining us today. Today's webinar is going to be on the topic effectively managing a remote team, and which is very, very relevant and useful during these times when we're all working from home in remote distances, or either your team is somewhere and you are somewhere else. So I really hope you find this very, very informative today. Today's speaker of the day is none other than Mr. David Appasamy, who is the head of brand and strategy at SocialBeat. SocialBeat being an award-winning and one of the fastest-growing digital marketing company in India, which is known for its thought leadership. David is awarded as one of the 50 leading marketing strategists in the world by the World Marketing Congress in 2018. And he has an experience of over 35 years in senior positions covering various aspects, various departments, including general management, business strategy, marketing, management, advertising, sales, and I can go on and on. So lovely to have you here, David. Thank you for taking the time out today to do this. Before I hand it over to you, just like to tell the audience that if you have any questions, please request you to please post the questions in the chat box, and we will definitely taking it up during the Q&A session. And hope you all have a very informative webinar. Over to you, David.
So good evening, everyone, and welcome to this webinar on how to manage remote teams effectively. If you're wondering why there are so few people on Zoom, don't worry about it, because most of them are on YouTube. So welcome everybody who's on Zoom as well as on YouTube. And we hope you find this session really, really useful and feel empowered going forward in terms of handling remote teams. So I have 3 questions for you before we start. Now this thing is frozen. My screen is frozen. One second. Sometimes I need to do this.
I think this is also one of the pointers while working remotely. Zoom screen sharing issues.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have 3 questions for all of you who are on the webinar. If you can quickly put into chat, if you're on Zoom, of course, you can put it on chat here. And if you're on YouTube, put it into chat there, and Lavanya will read out your questions. Read out your answers. So first, I'd like to know whether you're currently managing a remote team. Secondly, I'd like to know whether you think you'll be managing remote teams even after the pandemic. And lastly, what age bracket are you in? So if you could quickly put this into chat, it'll give me an idea of the audience, and I will be able to kind of tailor um, what I have to say going forward.
Yes, we have people answering the chat box. So we have Sagar telling he doesn't manage a team right now, and he's around the age group of 30 to 40. We have Rishu saying no, he doesn't manage a team as of now. And we have Amol who is managing currently a remote team, and he's in the age bracket of 40 plus. And we have Rashmi who's not managing a team as of now.
Great. And what about YouTube?
Yes, a lot of people actually, they are currently managing a team. We have Rishabh, who's at 20 to 30. We have Saranyan, who is 40 plus and managing a team. And we have Vijay and Abhishek, who are also 30 and 40 plus about respectively managing a team. So yeah, we have a lot of folks who are managing a team, but we also have folks who are not currently managing a team.
That's really good, because I think what you guys are really doing is future proofing yourselves in terms of your skills and abilities. Because going forward, we probably will see a hybrid form of employment, right? There may be thousands of people working from home, and um, a very large number from the office as well. So there'll be the flexibility of whether you want to work from home or whether you want to work from the office. TCS, as you know, has already started um, working in such a way that they will move to 70% of the team working from home in 3 years' time. So it's a good skill to learn. So I'm glad that you guys are on the webinar. This thing is frozen again. Why is this happening? Okay, it's moving. So what we're going to cover in the webinar today is the challenges with managing teams remotely. And all of you probably have trepidations and concerns as to whether this will be effective at all. And we're going to look at some of those challenges. Then we're going to discuss how we can overcome them, because challenges do exist, but they are manageable challenges, and we can actually uh, overcome them quite easily by being mindful and sensitive. And then we build on that by looking at how to motivate teams by leading and not managing, because what happens when we are cut off from team members is we are so conscious of getting the work done that we are managing work and not managing people. We tend to forget that as managers, we manage people and we motivate or inspire them to get the work done. So we need to first of all do a paradigm shift from managing people from managing work to managing people to getting the work done. And lastly, we look at building a personal connect with team members, even when working remotely, because this is going to be a very, very important factor going forward. And the reason is this: when we go to the office, we have FaceTime with people, right? We meet them, we talk to them, we have coffee with them, we meet them informally in the corridors, we meet them in the lobby, we meet them in the loo, and all those little social interactions add up. But when you're working remotely, none of that is there. So people feel terribly cut off. All the social interaction that kind of surrounded your work relationship are gone. So what we're going to look at is how do we ensure there is enough engagement to offset all that informal engagement that's been lost? So first, let's look at the challenges with managing remotely. Obviously, the team feels very disconnected, right? You're sitting at home in front of a laptop and you're trying to get work done. You have no one to talk to. You have no one to turn to for help. And you have the distractions of the family. It can be a very stressful situation, especially if the person is much younger or the family is much younger, the house is smaller, the kids are small. It can be very, very challenging. They feel very disconnected. Sometimes they can have a sense of lack of direction. You know, what am I supposed to do? What am I working towards? How do I get it done? In other words, they're not goal oriented because they don't know what they're supposed to be doing, or what the final goal is. And therefore, they have a feeling of helplessness. And when that happens, they get demotivated. And we have to watch out, because if that happens, we can start losing people very quickly. And the attrition rate in the company goes up, the cost of replacement goes up, everything adds up. So we need to be able to be very mindful as managers of what our teams are going through when they're working remotely. What are the challenges they're facing? We need to be emotionally intelligent. We need to be highly empathetic and sensitive. And of course, as managers, we have concerns about productivity. Are they actually working? I mean, how do we know, right? And what if the targets are not met? I'm not meeting them, they're not in front of me. How do I manage this? How do I monitor what they're doing? And will this work in the long term? These are all common trepidations that all of us have, which gives us a sense of disquiet and worse, a sense of insecurity. And lastly, if there is a team that needs to work together to achieve our goals, will the team actually be able to work together when they're not sitting together? How is that going to work? And will they clash when deadlines are not met? Remember, when it's a team that's working, deadlines are only met if team members are able to meet their individual uh, pieces of the work on time so that others can pick up from there. So one person has delayed it, and therefore the whole thing doesn't get finished on time. Will they start squabbling because you took so long to do that part, etc., etc.? And what will that do to bonding as a team? If everybody's going to be suspicious of each other and kind of taking pot shots at each other, how is it going to work? And what is this going to do about retention? Because very soon you'll find people are moving away. Maybe not in the current environment when jobs are hard to come by, but who knows what it's going to be like going forward, especially if there's a hybrid model. So these are the major concerns that we have as managers. One is major concern with regard to the team's state of mind. Second, about our ability to get the work done productively. And third, about managing teamwork and about retaining the team. So these are the real challenges. And I'm sure that all of you have at different points of time thought about these things in different ways and at different levels. So how do we overcome these challenges when working remotely? Now, that's what we're going to dive into at this point of time. But before we do that, what do we mean by remote? I think we need to understand this in an emotionally intelligent way. So to understand it better, I went and looked up the dictionary, and the Oxford Dictionary says, having very little connection with or relationship to. This kind of sums up everything that the team was feeling before, isn't it? Having very little connection with and very little relationship to. So if you look at this, that about sums it up. They don't feel connected with what is going on, and they don't have a relationship with the others with whom they're working. So this is really the core of what we're going to talk about. How do we overcome this to ensure that the team thrives, is able to work productively, is able to engage with you, engage with the company and with each other, and be able to achieve their goals? So the first thing is when you have a team, get them all together on a Zoom call or a Hangouts call or whatever, Blue Jeans call, whatever platform you guys work on, Microsoft Teams, and instill a sense of purpose in them. Talk in a very human way like you would in a room when you're with them. Don't worry that it's on Zoom. Just be yourself, talk to them the way you always did, and instill a sense of purpose in them. That could be in various ways. It could be to do with targets for the team. And later on, once you've established the targets, maybe month-wise, maybe to begin with, looking at the annual target and how we've done over the past so many months up to the end of September, half the year is gone. What a disaster it's been. How do we recover? Can we bridge the gap going forward, etc.? But engage with them and come to a consensus on what those targets and goals are. And what you can do to instill a sense of purpose is, even if you've done so badly because of the pandemic, you can ask them for ideas for galloping in the 6 months left to be able to make up for lost ground, or to come up with innovations or creative ideas to be able to at least regain some lost ground. And of course, individual goals, you'll do one-on-one calls with them. Or if the team is comfortable with each other, discuss individual goals with them in the team meeting. And what are the ways we can improve? That's what I just talked about. What are the innovative ideas we can use? What are the creative things we can do to try and increase our rate of growth going forward? And you can also discuss with them, beyond the actual numbers and so on, what we want to be known for as a team beyond the actual performance. So as a team, depending on what your team does, you can instill a sense of purpose with them by giving them a goal which is beyond the actual numbers. I'll give you an example. Many years ago, when I was when I was in advertising, of course, that was offline, but the analogy, the example remains good. I was suddenly asked to take over the subsidiary agency's branch in that office, in that city. And I moved from the major holding company where I was doing very well to take over the branch of the subsidiary company, which was a very small branch. And my mandate was to bring it to good health, which was very difficult because the portfolio of clients was very poor. And I had to begin by actually getting rid of most of them. When I say getting rid, that sounds terrible. But, having a discussion with them on a more business-like relationship. And if they were not willing, letting them go. And bringing on new clients who were major brands, who we could actually do well with, grow our revenues and build brands. So we started doing this. But it's a long process. You can't do this overnight, right? So during the first 8 months or so, the existing agencies moved out, and we had got at least one major brand and started prospecting others. So we finished the first year at a loss, obviously, and the second year was still running at a loss, and the team was getting dispirited. So we projected what we would do with the kind of brands we were talking to. But beyond the numbers, what I discussed with them, I'm talking about the last bullet. What do we want to be beyond this? What I told the team was, we may not be able to show excellence in terms of revenue numbers at this point of time, but let us show excellence in terms of the way we run the office at this time. So when the audit team comes, let them go back and say this is a model office in terms of how they manage, how they operate, how they keep the records, how they manage their finances. And the team agreed. And suddenly, everybody was supercharged. And we could do it because we had the time. We didn't have a vast number of clients with massive billings to distract us. We set the entire house in order. And when the audit team came, they came prepared to audit the branch for 5 days. They were done in 1.5. And then they said, everything's fine. We don't know what to do. I said, well, if everything's fine, you can go back. They went back and they told the company, this is a model office. Can you imagine how that motivated the team? That year, we won 4 major brands and we never looked back. We became so large and so profitable, the subsidiary was then merged into the major mother branch, the mother company, because we were billing more than that company. So these things are possible. I don't know what it is in your context, but look for a reason that can instill a sense of purpose that goes beyond the numbers to motivate the team and give them a sense of identity and belonging as a team. Then on a daily basis, you work with them with multiple touch points, because the more you engage with them, the better they feel, the better sense of being cared for, of interacting with you or the other members of the team. They feel comfortable, and the fact that they're working from home seems to fade away because they're engaged with you and they engage with their teammates. So have a brief meeting with them every morning. Discuss with each person what the priorities and goals for the day are, and if there's anything that's critical to be accomplished, by when they will accomplish it during the day. Maybe at 11:30, catch up for coffee with them informally. Now, everybody will have their own cup of coffee, obviously, but catch up for 5 or 10 minutes informally, not to discuss work, but just to catch up with each other and see how they're doing. It's a very nice thing to do. We do it all the time at Social Beat, and I can tell you it works. And especially when there are priority jobs going and there are deadlines to be met, check in periodically with them on messaging. Is everything going all right? Will we be done by 3:30? Do you need any help? Always be empowering. Always show support. And at the end of the day, maybe at 5:30, at 6, whatever time it is, meet for 10 minutes to look at what's been done during the day, how have we moved forward, and what's the plan for the next day, or cues for the plan for the next day. If you work with them like this on a daily basis, they're completely engaged. They know exactly what they need to do. They don't lack a sense of direction. They know what they're about. They know the annual goal. They know where they are. They know what we need to do in 6 months. They know what they need to do in that month. And they know what they're doing today and preparing for tomorrow. And they feel absolutely motivated and charged and engaged. What you also need to do is help them realize that the locus of control of the work has moved to them. You can facilitate, you can lead, you can manage, you can put a process in place that empowers them like this. But they need to take ownership. And how do you do that? To be able to do that, first you need to build a personal connect with each of your team members. Let them know that they're important to you as people. And they are, mind you, because without them, you can't get the work done. We tend to forget this when we have teams in the office. There are many people who focus more on their being the boss than they do on the fact that they wouldn't be a boss if they didn't have a team. What matters is the team, and what you need to do is to lead. And you are the boss to be able to lead. You're given that authority to be able to lead, And so stop focusing on being the boss and start focusing on the team and start valuing them. Let them know that you will help them to grow, that you will take the responsibility to foster them into growth and nurture their growth with every interaction. Every chance you get, coach. Don't just say, have you done it? Okay, get on to the next. That's the most boring transactional thing you can do. If you're only looking at work, that's what you'll do. But if you're looking at team and the team to get the work done, this is what you'll do. You will nurture their growth with every interaction. You will encourage, you will motivate, you will inspire, and challenge them to take charge. How will you do that? Remember, we talked about goals right in the beginning. Rather than give them what the target should be, discuss it with them and say, what do you think your target should be? More often than not, they will surprise you They'll give you a higher target than you had planned for them. If one of them doesn't, you can gently tell them, I think you can do better than that. Look at what you've achieved in the past. It's always about engagement and letting them take the onus for the target and for their growth. And when you do this, they will realize you're genuinely interested in them. And then you will emerge as a true leader, not a boss. And then you'll be able to lead, to be able to manage growth, because you're managing people who will manage the growth. And nurture them to be responsible. Celebrate the victories. Every time they take charge of something or they volunteer for something, hold that up as an example, and pat them on the back, encourage them in every way, enable them to become accountable by what we just discussed, setting their own goals, encourage independent thinking. So supposing you say, let's look at it this way, and one of them says, no, I think we shouldn't do that. Don't get upset and don't get angry. Remember, more minds always have a better solution to a problem. The solution doesn't always have to come from you. That's why you have a team. Ask that person, what do you think we should be doing? And let them come up with a solution. If it's a good one, don't immediately jump on it and say, great. Ask the others, what do you think? Let everybody contribute. And then you recount why it's a good solution and we should adopt it and say, hey, thank you for coming up with that. That's a great idea. That way you'll foster solutions orientation and you will encourage them going forward to start setting their own goals and planning their own work. And mind you, still talking remote. I know many managers don't even do this when the team is in the office with them. But believe me, it is vitally important that we do this, especially when we're working remotely. And definitely review every week, maybe on a Monday or on a Friday evening. Every week. So you know exactly what's going on. They know exactly what they've achieved and what needs to be done. And of course, do a monthly review. At all times, be genuine and absolutely transparent. You must be seen to be a person who walks the talk, who means what he or she says, not a person who says something that's expedient, who speaks from ego, who wants to establish their boss. No. If you speak as one of the team, but as the first among equals, they will love you. They will do anything for you. Because remember, you are facilitating their growth. In their minds, you're definitely the leader. You don't have to wear it on your chest and constantly be pushing it down their throats, reminding them that you're the boss. Not necessary. Develop a genuine interest in them and touch base with them as individuals as well. Do a weekly catch up with each one of them and say, is everything going okay? Is everything all right at home? Everybody is safe? Do you need any help? Is there anything that's troubling you? Is there anything I can do for you? It'll make such an enormous difference. It'll make such an enormous difference. We do all of these things at Social Beat. And I can tell you, we are rocketing growth just now. May was our lowest point. After that, month by month, we've climbed back to a level that we were before the pandemic. And we're still working from home. And we intend to continue for the foreseeable future. And we know that next month is going to be even better. But we work closely with the teams like we are discussing. So your concern for your team members is not only about facilitating their work or inspiring them or nurturing their growth. It should go beyond work to them as people. What are their hopes and dreams? What do they hope to achieve? Especially if they're very young team members, it's very likely that 2 to 3 years from now, or maybe even next year or the year after, they'll want to go and do higher studies. How will you know unless you have a personal chat with them to find out what their plans are, what their dreams and aspirations are? And if they are going to go and study, encourage them. Don't say, oh my God, I'm going to lose you. encourage them, help them make the application. But since they've shared that with you, you can plan for the replacement. You can manage your team and the transitions that much better. And believe me, when you help them and encourage them, they will always come back at some point. They will always view you as a mentor and a leader. And it will always come back to you in an empowering way at some point of time. So remember, remote is physical. That's not how your team members should feel, right? And if you do everything that we've discussed up to now, they're not going to feel remote. They're going to feel engaged. Most importantly, they're going to feel emotionally connected with you. And that's really what matters. That's where the comfort comes from. That's where the reassurance comes from. That's where the confidence comes from. That's where the sense of direction comes from. That's where the sense of security comes from. Their emotional connect with you as the leader. So remember, remote is physical. It's not really a problem if you're able to do all of these things. And for that, you need to communicate constantly. There was a recent study amongst global leaders in the world where they were all asked, what is the most important skill that you have that helped you achieve what you have achieved? 85% of them said it was communications. The more open you are, the more transparent you are, the more you communicate, the better you emerge as a leader, because people can follow. They have clarity in what you expect. That's what you need to do. And remember, we saw in the beginning that when you're discussing targets and goals and all of that, we said instill a sense of purpose, and that purpose could go beyond our goals and targets. PricewaterhouseCoopers had done a study among team members saying, what really motivates you at work? 83% of them said having a sense of purpose for myself and as a team. So these are not things that are good to do. You must do them. They will make an enormous difference. And in all of this, what do you think will happen? The team will succeed. And when the team succeeds, you succeed. So it's not about you. It's about nurturing the team to succeed. And then it's about you. Then you succeeded. Going beyond what we've just covered, motivate them by shepherding them. Be that actual mentor who can work with them in such a way they feel empowered. They feel they can turn to you. They can ask you for help. There are many bosses who have subordinates who won't dare ask them because they think if I expose my weakness, this guy or this lady will take advantage. Is that the kind of boss you want to be? It's better to be a mentor who can help them negate their weaknesses and build on their strengths so that they become better and better and better, because then your team will do better and better and better. So connect with them and gain their trust so that they look at you as a mentor, as somebody they can turn to for help and for knowledge and training. Let them know that they're important to you, that you trust them and will back them no matter what. They need that reassurance. They're sitting alone at home. What if they make a mistake? You got their back. If they have that reassurance, they will step out in faith to do their best for you. And let them know that you care about their growth and development, that it matters to you because they're your team. You want to see your team members grow because in their growth at the end of the day is your growth. It's only when they grow, you'll grow. If they remain where they are, you remain where you are. And finally, ensure their well-being. Do you know that the number of cases of stress and mental health have increased dramatically during these times in the last 6 months during the pandemic? It's because we are denied social interaction. It's because we are denied the sense of security that comes from it. Because we are denied a routine that reassures us with regard to our well-being. People are missing getting into their cars and driving to work or riding their motorbikes to work. That was a very valuable time of transition from home to work. That's completely missing today. And likewise, in the evening, getting onto their bikes or getting into their cars and going home, when they manage to de-stress from work and come back home. All that is missing today. You transition from home to work, there is no transition. And even during work, there's an overlap. And there's no transition going back. So people are carrying a high degree of stress. Add to that the fact you didn't have maids, you didn't have help. So over and above all this, you have to do all the work as well. Trust me, I know. I've been doing it for 6 months. So it's vitally important that you ensure their well-being, because if they feel good up here, they'll be productive and they'll work well as team members. So address their challenges. Ask them what challenges they're facing. It could be as simple as not having the right place to sit and get onto a Zoom call, because the house may not be very big. It's as simple as telling them, just put a chair against the wall at the back, like I'm doing right now. I've have my cat next to me. My wife has walked up and down. She's giving me a cup of tea. All this has happened, but you couldn't see any of it, right? It's as simple as putting a chair to the wall and putting a table or stool in front and putting your laptop on it. You have privacy, at least for a Zoom call. Address the challenges. It could be the quality of the internet connection. If so, could you speak to the company and ensure they have an allowance for a better internet connection? That's what we did at Social Beat. We ensured connections that were good for everybody. Foster problem solving. When they come to you with a problem, even if it's a personal problem, you don't solve it for them. You ask them questions, so they start thinking analytically and solve it for themselves. Then you'll be empowering them. And next time, they'll sort it out themselves. Share from your experience. Share your personal experience time and again, so they realize that this is something everybody faces. It's not like the sky has fallen on their heads. It's what others go through. Maybe it's not your personal experience, but you know of somebody else. I share from my life's experiences all the time, because after all, we're human. And shared experiences can teach us to do better. What you can also do is challenge them to do better, especially when you got to know them pretty well. You can challenge them to do better, because when they rise above themselves and do better, they will feel even better up here. Their confidence will grow, their sense of well-being will grow. And if you're able to work like this, believe me, you'll future-proof your abilities. Some of you have said that you are not, managing a remote team at this time. But it is highly likely that as we go into the future, we're going to see a lot of people working from home and a lot of people working from the office. But in future, it may never be that we will only manage a team in the office. It may be hybrid. You have to manage people in the office and those who work from home. So these skills will future-proof your ability and skill as a manager. So that brings us to the end of what I had to present to you. So now we're open for questions.
Thank you, David. Thank you for that. I think definitely communication and transparency and trust is the key going forward with the team as well. So we do have a lot of questions, so we can take it one by one. You can stop your screen sharing and
Yeah, I'll do that.
yeah. So the first question is from Priya on Instagram. So she wants to know, how do you handle stress of the team when the team is working from home? How do you talk to them and all that?
Yeah. This is actually an opportunity where you can build a personal connect with the team. Now, when people are talking about stress, they may not want to talk as a team. So this is something that you would do in your one-on-one catch-up with them, maybe once a week. We ask them how things are at home, and spontaneously it will come out. And it's important that you listen more than you talk. 80% should be listening, It should be, when required, understanding and sympathy, and when required, some direction. Be as empathetic as you can be, and in places where you can actually help them, make those suggestions. But 50% of the stress is relieved when they can talk about it, when they can tell somebody about it. So that's how you could do it. Make sure that you have that one-on-one interaction with your team members at least once a week. Not as a team, but one-on-one.
Sure. So we have Rishabh on YouTube asking us. He says his teams, or generally teams, are resistant towards any processes that companies implement. For example, a process like a CRM or a new process while working from home. So he's asking, how do you sort of figure that out with them? How do you solve that unwillingness from people?
This is a classic example of when an email goes out saying, this is how we're going to work from now on. Do they feel engaged? Do they feel connected? Is it an inclusive process? No. When something is being introduced, the first thing to do is get the team together and talk to them and say, these are the kind of problems we've been facing in the past. And we're trying to find solutions to this. And after a company-wide survey, this is what we discovered. And we believe that these things can be set right if we follow this process or implement this solution. So what do you guys think? Discuss it at length with them, get their buy-in, and then implement it. It'll work.
So Veer on Instagram has an interesting question. So he wants to touch upon the various work tracking tools that generally companies have started using now to track their employees on their work timings or shifts or hour basis. So he wants to know your opinion on them.
That's okay to keep a record of what's going on. But what I've just outlined to you in terms of daily interactions with multiple touch points, a weekly catch up in terms of weekly review in terms of what's been achieved, and the monthly review, and personal interaction on work on an ongoing basis, encouragement, empowerment, and nurturing people works much better than a tracking system. A tracking system makes people feel like they're not human. It's like a machine monitoring their work. But if you are talking to them about it and discussing it with them in a warm, engaging manner, encouraging them, saying, guys, we can do better, getting them to do stretch goals, do you really need a tracking system? I know that these things are popular, but believe me, human beings don't respond well to things like that. I don't know how many of you know the kind of system Amazon has in the warehouses to track the productivity of the employees. Do you know the highest attrition rate is in Amazon warehouses? And people have mental health issues because of the tracking system. It's productivity tracking system. So don't depend on those things. You are the manager. If you do it, you will have an empowered team who will produce more than you expect them to.
So since you spoke about mental health, I wanted to ask a question for myself, which is when somebody doesn't open up about what they're going through, but you did see a dip in the performance because of that, maybe any issue personally, or they're not feeling so good about things, how do you make them open up? Or how do you, because it is affecting work, right? So how do you sort of bring them to talk about it, or you are there to help them? How do you sort of have that communication?
It's a very good question, Lavanya. See, what happens is if somebody is not willing to open up, that really means you haven't developed a trust relationship with them yet. So the onus is then on you to build that trust and to kind of reach out to them in a way that they are reassured and feel confident in talking to you. So if they're not open to talking to you, send them an occasional WhatsApp message saying, thinking of you, I hope everything's okay. I noticed you looked a little downcast in the meeting this morning. Can I help in any way? Not with a great degree of frequency, but build that empathy, build that feeling that you care, that they can actually have confidence that you are concerned. And then the next time when you say, is everything all right? They'll open up. So it's a question of taking the onus to do the reassurance in such a way that they start trusting you. And empowered teams that trust their leaders will do wonders. They look at a target and say, what nonsense, we'll do 20% more than this.
Raksha has a very relatable question to all of us, which is she wants to know how does the whole process of managing somebody working remotely? Yes, you can do it for an existing person whom you know very well, but what about somebody joining new to the company? Right from the onboarding process till they start work, and even after that, even if they settle a bit, how do you manage that, and how do you make them feel more comfortable?
Again, a very good question. When a new team member joins, especially when you're all working remotely, the first thing you organize is an introduction to the team on Zoom. So all of you meet. Every member of the team first introduces themselves to her, so she feels comfortable, and then he or she introduces themselves. You let them interact on a more personal basis for a while, maybe have it over coffee and biscuits, and then have maybe each member of the team give a personal message of advice to this person in terms of what they can look forward to, something. And at that point, you can reiterate your team goals or the purpose that you've given yourselves as a team, so that the new member feels a sense of belonging from day one and knows everybody in the team and is able to respond and engage without any sense of reservation.
Yeah, coffee sounds great, and we do that little often in social meet as well. Amrita on Zoom asking us as how do you manage when members of other teams come up for suggestion? I'm assuming suggestions related to remotely monitoring people, and how do you help them? That's what she wants to know.
When you say people from other teams, you are saying the team members of another team approaching you as a manager. That's what I understand.
Yes, that's what she says. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I'd suggest is that by all means talk to that person, but let their manager know that this person had this kind of a concern and I've shared this with them. I just thought I'd keep you informed. That's all. So that it doesn't look like you're playing games. But be open and transparent, in helping that person as well as letting their manager know.
One more person from YouTube is asking, which is, I think, from his perspective of things, on how can somebody achieve positivity and motivation in a team, especially during these tough times when you're not with the team together.
Everything that I've told you during the course of the presentation that I made is about that. So I don't know if DigiGrad is going to be sharing the presentation with them.
Yes, yes. Live YouTube video will be there on YouTube.
The video is there on YouTube. Watch it again, and you know exactly how to do it.
And Abhirami is asking us a question. Are organizations and employees prepared to take this forward in the future in a long-term basis?
What, remote working? Well, it depends on the organization and depends on the employees. There are people who'd rather work in the office as well. And if you are in manufacturing, for example, you don't have much of an option, right? But in services, especially IT services, it's a very, very good option. And if you look at what's been happening in the West over the last 10 years, the growth of employees opting to work from home has gone up by 400%, even before the pandemic, right? So, and if you look at the millennial generation, if you look at people who are now like yourselves, who are in their 20s and 30s, there are many people who are saying, you know what, I'd rather work from home. And the danger in all of this is also that if you're not a good boss, if you don't engage with your employees, highly talented people are leaving and working in the gig economy as freelancers. We're losing the best talent. So this is something that is going to grow. And I think there is no escaping that going forward. There are multiple benefits, both for organizations and for employees. Because, take my example. I have to drive 16 kilometers to work through heavy traffic. Do I like working from home? You bet. I'd rather work from home. But there are people to whom the reassurance of the office makes a difference, right? So it depends. But I think both companies and employees, depending on the kind of company it is and the kind of employees that they have and the nature of business they're in, will be open to exploring more flexible ways of doing this going forward.
Absolutely. I know a lot of people who are so much comfortable working from home that they're not ready to go back to office yet also. And they also get a lot of family time. They save the whole hassle of traveling. So there is that aspect as well. We have a question from Priyanka. So her question is how we should make sure we are working hard, even remotely, to our employees as we are not visible all the time to our team.
Here's where your integrity and your sense of commitment come into play. And if you have um, a leader who checks in with you every morning in the team meeting very briefly, where everybody discusses their goals for the day, there is no problem, right? But if you take the onus on yourself with absolute integrity to do that work, you will get it done. You know, it is people who have very little sense of identity or identity with the company, or a sense of personal integrity, who will, be lounging around at home instead of doing work. That is dysfunctional behavior, in my opinion. So, if you have the integrity, you will get it done. I know, for example, in talking to team members in our company, that people are saying even if they take a tea break or say 10 or 15 minutes to have tea and biscuits, they feel very guilty and get back to work. That's commitment, that's integrity. And that's what we need to have. Because after all, you have a kind of a covenant contract with your company when you start working for them. They are compensating you for your talents and for the work that you offer. Now, if you're not giving that back, do you deserve the money they're giving you? That's where integrity comes into play.
Absolutely agreed. So before we take on the last question, just wanted to tell everybody we do have a couple of minutes left. So if anybody has any more questions, we can take them up as well. So this question is from Abhishek. So he says the remote working can be a long-term challenge as per his belief. How do you see remote work impact the team psychologically? And as a leader, how do I address this?
As a leader, you can ensure that it doesn't affect them psychologically. And that's really what I've been talking about throughout this session. The onus is on the leader. And the onus is on the leader to establish that emotional connect. You know, what I'm trying to say is your ability to lead a team is far more important at this time when leading teams remotely than it ever was when you were in the office. You know, there you could get away with a lot of things because you were all in the same room. Here, everything is heightened in terms of sensitivity and criticality. Therefore, the leader has to be that much more emotionally intelligent to pick up every signal that he sees on the screen. You know, I can look at somebody and know that something is bothering them. And I can send them a personal message saying, hey, is everything all right? Imagine how that person feels, that you care, to reach out. So really, the things that a leader can do to emotionally reassure and ensure that they are feeling good and charged and have a sense of well-being is even more when working remote. But it all comes to you're reaching out, you're taking the initiative in establishing that relationship with them, you're nurturing them, you're letting them know that you care. And that makes all the difference.
I think this should be a final question. We have one more question from Mandeep. He wants to know how will remote working ensure reaching the organizational objectives. I think what he means is how do you constantly communicate the objectives as a team, as an organization to your team when you are working remotely.
So the organizational objectives can vary from an organizational level to a division level, right down to your team level, right? So at the organizational level, the CEO and the top team will take care of it. At a divisional level, the divisional head will take care of it. What you need to do is, flowing from that, let your team know what they are supposed to do. We talked about goal setting, right? In the beginning. So when you're discussing it with the team, that is what you'll be discussing. And once the business goals are set and the business objectives are set, you will then look at giving them a sense of purpose, which goes beyond that. So when you do that, they have a complete sense of what's expected of them, a complete sense of belonging, and a sense of motivation to go out there and get it done. I have a few things to add. One very important attribute of management that is not talked about at all has come to the fore during this time of the pandemic. And this is not a word that is used in management jargon at all. And I would seriously ask you to consider including it in your lexicon when you're managing. And that is caring. There's an analysis of the leaders of the world who were best able to manage the pandemic. New Zealand, Germany. These are two countries that stood out in terms of how they managed the pandemic. Both the leaders are women, and they cared, and it made all the difference. And we know countries where the leaders didn't care, and how the people suffered and are still suffering, whether in India or elsewhere. Caring is often considered a feminine attribute. But hey, as a manager, for goodness sake, be what they call a metrosexual. You're capable of emotions on both sides of the gender plane. And you must care. Otherwise, you can't be a leader. Caring is, in my opinion, one of the most important aspects of leadership. If you don't care for your team won't care for you. Then how are you a leader? A leader needs followers, right? And why will they follow you if you don't care for them? So take caring as an integral part of your being a leader, of being a manager, and start using it in a way that gets your team to know that you care about them, and the way they reciprocate will astonish you. I've had a team member, when I did something for them where they required help, rush up to me, put their arms around me, pick me up off the ground, and walk around. I mean, would you expect that? I'm not a small guy, okay? I'm 6 feet tall. But this person was so overwhelmed with gratitude or warmth or love or whatever you want to call it. He came and picked me up off the ground and walked around in his joy. Because he was trying to replace a team member and he found it impossible. And I enabled it. And he was so overcome with joy. It's not something I need have done, by the way. See, these are things that show that you care. And these things make you a true leader and not a leader in terms of the organizational chart. This makes you a leader in their minds. And that's what matters, because they identify with you, they connect with you, they will do their best for you. This is what they do in the army. Why do you think a soldier will lay down his life for his captain? If you've got enemy out there with machine guns and the captain says charge, and of course the captain leads from the front, he starts charging first, they all follow. Lives are at stake, but they follow because they believe in that man. That is, of course, an extreme example. But are you that kind of a leader? Do you care for your troops the way the captain does? The captain would give his life for them. They know that. We don't have to give our lives, but you can at least care, and you can support and nurture and encourage, and I hope that helps.
Absolutely, David. Thank you so much. I completely agree with you. I think, thank you. It was a it was not just an informative webinar on how do you go about things, but I think coming from your own experience is what always makes all your sessions very special. And so was this one. Thank you for taking your time out. Hope you have a lovely evening. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Please do leave your feedback in the form I've just sent it to you. For any future webinars, please do keep subscribing to our channel as well. Thank you.
And feel free to connect on LinkedIn if you have any further questions. Thank you, guys. Thank you for registering and attending the seminar. Bye.